Hello, everyone, and welcome to She Said What She Said, where we interview badass women in the sports world and beyond. And I have a super exciting guest this evening. As I was telling her before we got started, she was actually on my original list of people to hit up back when I started this in November. Because of her specialty, I kind of wanted to save it for a good time, and I think now is the fantastic time. So to give you a little bit of background, though, of how I met her in the world of flag football, where she was an absolute badass. So when I first started playing flag down the south side of Chicago, she was one of those women that you were like, damn, she's so good. And so it was just not just like, and then you realize how nice she was. And it was like, oh, she's the complete package here. Then I got to learn a little bit more about who she is as an actual person, because I think I've known her for like close to a decade. I don't know. What is time? It's like it just kind of goes, but I would say it's a decade. It's close to a decade, damn near a decade. Yeah. So through the years, I've been following her, what she's been doing professionally, and that makes her an absolute beyond badass. So in the professional world, she is a licensed social worker. She's a I will let her actually give the full title because I might mess some of it up. So without further ado, let me hold on, I don't even have my mouse raised. Tytannie Harris, come and join us. Hey, girl.
Hey, you are fine. So you can call me Tanny for this show, but it's Tytannie, but you can call me Tanny.
I was like, then I was like, wait, do you want me to call you Tytannie?
Okay.
Or you want to call me Tanny?
This is listen,
or Dr. Harris. I'm like, what are we doing here? I totally forgot.
Not yet, but
totally forgot to ask you, what official title are we doing today?
So for this, typically in professional circles, I'm Tytannie, as my grandmother always say. You are Tytannie in those professional circles, yes. But Tanny for this show is fine. That's how you know me, so that's fine.
I know. I've never called you that, and then I was like, oh shit, which are we doing today?
You're like, how do you even pronounce it?
I know. I was like, is it T? Is it Ty?
Tytannie.
I mean, I love it. But it's just so funny, when you have something that you call someone for so long, and then you're like, ooh, are we doing the professional name today? Because I haven't practiced that one in the mirror.
It's okay. It's quite all right.
And give people, what is your official title? You have these letters next to your name, LCSW.
I am the CEO of TMH Behavioral Services, a licensed clinical social worker, psychotherapist, author, and inspirational speaker and consultant.
Bam.
So yeah, I do a lot.
You do so much, and you are a collector of beautiful art right behind you.
Thank you. Yes.
I was like,
thank you.
I absolutely adore that. Oh, me too. Me too. It's beautiful. Before though, we dive into your, this is why she's here, because I realized I never asked, or maybe I asked, but I don't remember. What is your sports background? Because you came out and you were just so athletic, so incredible, like on the football field. What is your actual sports background?
So that's a lot of people ask me that. So I was one of those people as a kid. I played everything: softball, volleyball. I didn't get into like basketball until later, which is ironically crazy because I played a little bit in junior college. So played sports in high school, ran cross country, track, volleyball, basketball, played junior college at Kennedy King College. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, nice. And who brought you into the flag football world?
That's a great question. So I think in 2011, my sister is really good friends with Brian Foster, who used to run ITZ. They went to college together. So when she initially asked me, I was like, no, I'm good. She's like, I'll give you something to do. You can, I was looking for something, but I know what that something was. She's like, oh, you can stay in shape. I think you'll be pretty good. And I'm like, we'll see. And then in 2011, I just like got online and like I signed up for a random team. Like when you can sign up as an individual, I didn't know anybody. And so that's how I started.
Shit.
It was great. Yeah, I wasn't like it was like I just signed up as an individual.
So you just came out there. Okay. I love it.
Yeah.
It's just always, it's one, you know, like you're with someone for so many years, but you don't like superheroes, you don't necessarily know their origin story. I started because Jamila Bowman and I ran track together in high school.
I knew, Jam.
Yeah, and Angel Pringle. Yeah, so they
love Angel. I used to. So Angel, people don't know this, but Angel was my supervisor as an intern.
Really?
Yes, we both went to Loyola College, Loyola University. We got our master's in social work, and my internship with After School Matters, Angel was one of my supervisors.
No shit.
Love Angel. Yeah. A long time.
Yeah, she's well, I've known her longer. No,
of course you have.
And Frank is saying, "Hey, Frank."
Hi, Frank. Thank you. Oh, it's not Mrs. yet, but I hope
I know, right?
Speak it, Frank. Speak it.
Put it into existence. Thank you, Frank. Yeah, it's just fun to learn the origin stories of all of our people and how everyone's world is just kind of like you and Angel, working there. Like Chicago is such a large city, but it's so small. You know what I mean?
That's where I met Tracy too. On the football.
Oh, you met Tracy in football?
People don't know that because we're so close. We met playing football.
And I was gonna think, I'm like, oh, so you must have brought Tracy in.
Nope, sure I did not. Nope. We found each other through flag football. Okay. Hey, what do you do if you're watching?
Yeah. Oh, that is fantastic. So what made you, and we're going to dive into this because I know you have a very important meeting tonight at 9:15, not at 8:15, but 9:15. Both of our time zones are completely off today.
I know, right?
What made you get into the world of social work, therapy, all of the mental health?
Oh, where do I start? So I always tell people that this profession chose me. Mm-hmm. I did not set out to be a therapist. I did not. So I actually want to be on be on TV talking about sports. Mm-hmm. So I thought I would be on TV talking about how LeBron James is one of the greatest players ever, but that's up for discussion. That's what I thought.
I agree.
Professionally it started. So I used to teach. So I have a bachelor's in special education. And I used to teach at a behavioral school, and I found that my students always wanted to talk to me about everything outside of academics. And I'm just like, and I noticed that the social workers at the school, they were okay, but my students always wanted to stay after and just meet with me. And personally, so I grew up, people know it as the foster care system, but I am a former DCFS ward. Oh, and so I grew up in the system, and I think about what I didn't have in terms of just therapists and just support. And so for me, on a personal level, I am just who I needed. I had some challenges as a young kid, as a teen, that I just had to work through. And so I know what that's like. And so I just became what I needed, in a nutshell, to be honest. And I ran away from it. I didn't even start on my major, didn't start off as social work. I wanted to be actually a psychologist, but because of life circumstances, it would have taken me longer to land a job. Psychology programs are long, right? Especially if you're talking about going to get your doctorate. And so for me, I was like, what's the quickest way for me to get through school and become a psychotherapist? I'm a psychologist, which is a little different, but just kind of get on that path. And social work was where it's at. And I had all these ideas about social work because when I thought of social work, I thought of what I knew, my case manager.
Right, what you were working with.
And it's so much more than that. And so doing research and talking to folks in the field is kind of what led me to this. So, yeah.
Yeah. And can you tell for the people in the back, what is the difference between a psychotherapist and a psychologist?
Yep. So we're the same in that we both treat people. And now let me put a disclaimer out. You don't have to have a mental illness to see a therapist, a mental health professional. Let me just make that clear. But like a psychologist, we can diagnose, right, and assess folks. The biggest difference is a psychologist can do what's called psychological evaluations and psychological testing. I do what's called diagnostic evaluations or mental health assessments, which are a little bit different. But the key difference is that a psychologist goes to school longer and they can add that psychological testing to some of their work.
Not to be confused with a psychiatrist.
Exactly. A psychiatrist who is a medical doctor who prescribes meds, and they go to school a long time. But as a psychotherapist and trained as a clinical social worker, I can refer folks out for meds.
Yep, absolutely. I have my psychiatrist that I go to since I was 21, 22. Yes, he gives me my drugs. But yeah, over the years, I've gone to, yes, he had referred me to a psychologist to do the work. I just kind of wanted to make sure everyone understands.
Oh yeah, I get asked the question all the time. How are you a licensed clinical social worker, but you're a psychotherapist? And I'm like, well, as a licensed clinical social worker, I am licensed in the state of Illinois as a psychotherapist who can provide mental health services. Mm-hmm.
And the main, when people are like, oh, do you go to psychotherapy? Like, what? It's who you feel comfortable with, and
it really is. We're all different,
and who has that experience, that specialty, everything that you need. Unless you need drugs, right? If you need drugs, then obviously you need to go to the drug doctor. But when you're talking about the therapy, the mental health stuff, to me, it's like at a certain point, the titles don't necessarily matter. It's who that
they don't
is.
Listen. So my team at TMH Behavioral Services, I have 15 therapists, and we're all qualified mental health professionals, licensed clinical social workers, licensed clinical professional counselors. I have a holistic wellness doctor, licensed marriage and family therapist. So we're all trained differently. And as my vice president always say, therapy it's like a great shoe. It has to be a good fit, right? Yeah. So different training, but it's really who you feel comfortable with.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, and so let's talk I did not realize you had 15.
I do. I have a staff of 15 at TMH Behavioral Services. Shout out to some of my team if they're watching.
Hey. When did you start your practice?
Took April 20th, 2015. I started.
Has it been that long?
We turned 7 years old this year.
I'm thinking I was like 3 or 4 years.
No, 7 years. So from 2015 to 2018, I was a solo clinician. Running TMH Behavioral Services. I was doing the billing, seeing clients, doing everything, learning the business, still learning what it meant to be a business owner. Because the difference between being a therapist but being a business owner, right? So learning, so I had some learning curves. And it was Tracy in 2018 who said, you need help. You need to hire somebody. And I'm like, And what's so hey John, hey Irv. What's so interesting is when I was in college, you know how you think things, but sometimes you don't really believe it. Yep. So in my mind, I remember being in college going, oh, what if one day I had a private practice with all Black therapists, just randomly. And I didn't believe it though when I said, I'll be honest. I just said it and kind of left it off. So in 2018, fast forward 3 years by myself, I did my vision board for January and I was like, hire one therapist. By April, I had 5. I grew so fast and then realized, wow, there's such a need. So it's been 7 years of just amazing work. My team is amazing. I can't do this work without them. We see everybody, men, women, and children. We provide individual therapy, family therapy, couples counseling, group therapy, community support, case management, holistic wellness, alternative therapies. We also work with organizations around professional development and community workshops. So we do a lot.
Yeah, you guys are. I'm always seeing you on Facebook, like at this event, at that event. I'm like, let me get that because you're on my schedule. And are all of your are all your therapists Black?
Nope. So I have one Spanish speaking and my favorite white girl, Gwen Vanna.
Hey, Gwen.
So 13 Black and 2 non-Black. Yep.
That is, and when you're going to hire someone, that's another thing too, right? Because you have a practice, right? You have your brand, right? Anyone that represents you is your brand.
That's right.
Because you can't watch someone's session when they're in for confidentiality. How do you select the people to represent your brand?
Look at all this knowledge you got. Come on, Sherry. Do I have to hire you? Wait a minute. What is your background in?
Yeah, I'm a businesswoman. I told you I don't write these questions ahead of time, but I'm always thinking because as a manager, you evaluate people by watching their work. You can't see their work. So
can't.
How do you hire and how do you evaluate?
Yes, that is a great question. So because we've grown so rapidly, we have a 3-tier process. So first you have to meet with our clinical director. If you make it past her, you did interview with our vice president. If you make it past that portion, you did interview with myself. And so we get letters of reference, right? There's certain educational requirements we have. Right. The resume means a lot. And it's not really about who's licensed, because I don't believe that necessarily just because you're licensed means you're a great therapist. But those letters of recommendations are everything. And also, I do audits For example, so we do quarterly audits where my vice president will pick like 3 to 4 clients per therapist. And we have a list of questions that we'll ask. Hey, John. And so those are questions like, does your therapist show up on time? Are you benefiting from these services? What are your treatment plan goals? What's, you know, did you go over an assessment? So there are certain questions that we ask to inform us of our work. And clients email me all the time. I love such and such.
Yeah.
You know, and I can't share them, as you know, because of confidentiality. And I would say that's the part about owning this business that I the least part I enjoy. I can't share. I can't ask people to post reviews. You just can't do that ethically and because of HIPAA laws, right? But I get emails from clients who say, I love such and such, and I honor my therapists. I'll shout them out through our team email or send them an Amazon gift card or something to say keep up the great work. So that's how I kind of know who needs to stay and who needs to go.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I guess if a bunch of people stop coming to a therapist, it's probably an idea of if they have a high turnover. I mean, you're going to get turnover, right? But like, I'm sure you have ways to track like what the average turnover is.
Oh, definitely. So one thing that we do that's unique, I think sets us apart, is that when someone calls our office, we assign them a therapist, but my intake coordinator does a great job of letting them know, like, listen, this is a therapist you're assigned to, but if you're not feeling this therapist or you don't think it's a great fit, we give you the opportunity to switch.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you take into account when people say, like, I only want to talk to a man or talk to a woman.
Oh, yes. And also, if we can't help you, we do a great job of making sure you get the services that you need.
Fantastic. I love it how you have 13 Black therapists, right? Because I don't know the stats. Maybe you do. Do you have any idea? I'm sure you do. What is the percentage of Black?
Less than 4% of mental health professionals are Black.
And how many of those are Black men?
Woo, 0 points. And what's so crazy is I know personally like more than 10 Black therapists. At one point, I had 4 male therapists on my team at one point, which was like unheard of at one point. So now I'm down to 2 male therapists on TMH Behavioral Services, and someone in the football league works for me.
That's fantastic. Do they have a waiting list?
The male therapists? TMH Behavioral Services has a waiting list.
Shit. It is rough out there now.
Listen, I've been very blessed. I tell people we have been very blessed. So prior to the pandemic, we were fine. I was like, I have my 8 people. I'm good. I want to go do some other things. I don't necessarily want to be too big. I like the family feel of what I've built. The pandemic and just some of the racial unrest and just the racial trauma kind of shifted that for us and shifted me, to be honest. My therapist, I always tell them we have been dealing with these shared traumas the last 2 years with our clients. That has never happened.
Yeah, it's because you had George Floyd.
That's that racial trauma.
You had that. You had Ahmed. All of these.
Yes.
Boom, boom, boom. Going into a pandemic. Going into and we know. Within the Black community, COVID hit harder for deaths. So you're having the deaths of loved ones all at once.
Exactly. And we didn't get a break. So when everybody had that break from work, TMH Behavioral Services did not. And we actually have always offered telehealth services. Always. That's always been an option. And our clients have been like, no, I want to come in. And also, we are a non-traditional practice as well, too. I want to make that clear. So my business is a reflection of my social work background. So what I mean is we don't just provide, prior to COVID, we weren't just in the office providing traditional services. We were in the schools, nursing homes, assisted living facilities, and we also go into the homes of people who can't get to us, like seniors or those with chronic illnesses.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And I'm so glad, because we talked representation, obviously, and for people that don't understand, like to me, it makes perfect logical sense, right?
Hey, booty doo.
There she goes. She was coming on. For me, since I was a teenager, right, I will never see a male gynecologist. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want a man, a doctor man up in my lady bits. Like, I want the people looking at myself to understand what I have going on down there. And it's, like, put it
You're
bluntly,
right.
yeah. And it's, even like my doctor, she's at Northwestern. I've had the same one. She does another person we've been talking about, Angel.
Hey, Angel, you missed when I shouted you out as my former supervisor.
We already talked about you, girl. Hey, you have to catch the replay. But yeah, and it's but even like she has residents going with her, and I'm always like, residents can come. They can join my pap smear. It's fine. We'll put on a show, but they have to be female. I just don't feel comfortable with a man. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it obviously makes sense when you're in your most vulnerable, right? Whether it's in the stirrups at a gynecologist visit or on a therapist's office, you want to feel like that person you're speaking to understands the core of who you are.
Yep. That's so important. I always, the thing is, relationship is everything in my work. Mm-hmm. I tell my therapist all the time, if a client likes you, you're going to get the work done. It's just what it is. And although the Black experience is not monolithic, when people see people who look like them, it helps, right? To be vulnerable. Like, there's an understanding there. So
yeah, it's, and not to say that like a white therapist could never help someone that's Black or, but there is definitely, it helps. And especially for certain individuals, right? Like if you have someone that's been very closed off, had a lot of trauma throughout their life, that person, like, I've been to therapists a lot. Like I've tried to feel like, I'm going to be more open, but if someone is really new to it, they really might feel most comfortable when that representation is there.
What's so interesting, what we have seen, and my vice president and I were talking about this, we have seen white folks call our offices and request Black therapists.
Really?
It's been an interesting trend. Like when we'll say, she would, sometimes just say, do you want to see this person? They're like, no, I prefer a black therapist. And we're like, okay. Which is interesting. Yeah. But it's really all about the relationship. And like I said, it is, people think there are a lot of Black therapists, and we talked about this, they're not. There's just not enough of us. So we're doing our part to make sure we bring more of us into this field, which is important.
It is. And as you say, bringing more into the field, like you're doing stuff with schools, right? How are you trying to reach that next generation of young Black men and women of thinking this is a career that I should go into?
So one of the things, and we haven't talked about my nonprofit, TMH Man.
I wasn't yet, but that was like coming up super close.
I'm going to shift to that, but no. So on the TMH Behavioral Services side, what we have done is we have developed relationships and partnerships with universities here in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And so where we go out and we give workshops, we talk, especially in their social work department, because everybody who majors in social work, counseling, psychology doesn't necessarily want to be a therapist. There are so many other things that you can do, especially with an MSW. I'm a little biased with the social work field. There's so much that you can do. And so one of the things is we have to change the narrative about our field. So when I was coming up, nobody talked to me about what it meant to be a psychotherapist in private practice and owning a business, and how this could be how you can make a good living, right? I was always told, oh, you're not gonna make any money being a social worker and counseling, psychology. Like, why are you doing that? We have to change the narrative.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think of when Angel was working social worker in Chicago public schools, like how overworked she was and all. Yep. And that, again, that is
the 12-hour days. I've been there,
having three different schools sharing one social worker, and then wondering why we're still having trouble with our youth. Well, I don't know, because they don't have any access to care. Weird.
Mm-hmm. Access. Yeah. There are so many barriers to folks accessing quality mental health services, right? Not enough providers, being underinsured, not enough mental health community centers in our neighborhoods, like that. Those are some of the big things. Mistrust of providers.
Yeah,
it's a lot of things that go into that.
Mm-hmm. And that, telehealth is so wonderful too, to bring that in, right? Because telehealth, you can have someone from downstate Illinois.
That's right. Yes, we literally have some clients who live in towns I've never even heard of them.
You start Googling it, like, what is this? Is this?
But it's needed. It's needed. Mm-hmm. It's definitely
Absolutely.
needed. I'm just glad that I've been in this field over 10 years and I've always been an advocate. This is my life's work, but I'm happy that people are catching on and just acknowledging that your mental health is so important. Like it plays a factor in how you live your life, right? Mm-hmm. If you're not well mentally, then it's impossible to do anything else, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. As someone that has spent years in therapy and takes some nice drugs every day to help me. They're great. Thanks.
Let me find out you're a drug dealership.
Girl, shoot. No. But when we talk about it so I first got my diagnoses back in 2007. It was not really talked about. And when I was spiraling out of control, there were no one really to help. I actually ended up and I've talked about this before, ended up in the psych ward, admitted to the psych ward at Northwestern because it was just so hard to get the help. People wouldn't take you. I had a doctor tell me I was homesick. I left high school in 2002. I went to school, 6 hours. I haven't lived at home since 2002. You're going to tell me 5 years later I'm just homesick? What kind of, they're just skipping over every single, when you look down the diet, you're like, hey, I check every box. So it was very hard for me to find care. And fortunately, when I was in my brief stay in the psych ward, I met my psychiatrist, who I still go to today. And he hooked me up with my psychologist, who I saw for 7 years.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a fucking struggle back in the day. And it's nice to see that now people don't necessarily have to end up in the psych ward for someone to take them seriously.
Yeah, I've seen this trend in people even being open about seeing a therapist. So I think about, so I've been a therapist over 10 years. I think about when I first started and how, it was a secret to be in therapy, where now my clients, they're like, Miss T, I'm gonna post you on my social media. Is that okay?
Right.
I want everybody to know I'm in therapy. Like these millennials, I'm an older millennial, but millennials are super excited to be in therapy and mental health. So
yeah, so now let's swing on over right into your nonprofit, because in your nonprofit, you actually specialize in a community that has really been underserved. Tell us about your nonprofit, because you didn't have enough to do in your time running your own practice. So you're like, well, let me just throw a nonprofit in here as well.
Yeah, so TMH Man Cave, shout out to my TMH Man Cave team, is a nonprofit whose mission is to eliminate the stigma and bring awareness to the mental health needs of Black men and boys. Mm-hmm. And I started this organization 4 years ago. This October, we turned 4 years. I can't believe it. It's self-funded. Let me just throw it out there. It's self-funded so far. Yeah. And so I started this organization because as a psychotherapist at TMH Behavioral Services, I primarily, before I even started my nonprofit, my specialty were Black boys with behavioral problems.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how I started. And seniors, of course, but I only work with Black men and boys as a psychotherapist. Mm-hmm. And so what I found was my clients didn't have enough time. Like what I was providing them once a week with the hourly sessions just wasn't enough. And I realized they all were struggling with some of the same issues. Mm-hmm. And then I think it was Philando Castile was murdered.
Yeah.
More and more Black men were calling our office. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I got to create something. And personally, I am the daughter of a father who has some mental illness, who struggles with his mental health and just still trying to figure out what it means to be a dad. And so I'm like, well, why not create this space for men? Did some research, didn't see a lot for Black men here in Chicago, just for Black men. A lot of organizations work with the Black community around their mental health, but nothing specifically focused on Black men specifically. And so I started TMH Man Cave. In my mind, I just said, okay, I'm gonna do one workshop on mental health. See if men even understand what mental health is. Mm-hmm. I did the one workshop. About 15 men showed up, and it was great. And a lot of them were like, "Well, when is the next one?"
Right.
So that first one, I had women there. It was a learning curve. And so I got some great feedback. The men were like, if this is a man cave, why are women here?
Yeah.
You know, like, here's your feedback. And so it has taken on a life of its own. We have evolved. We have so many programming options. We're doing more for black boys. So I'm really excited about the work that we're doing. And like I said, it's self-funded. So if you want to donate, tmhmancave.com. Yeah, I love the work that we're doing. You know, black men have often been forgotten about in society, right? I talk about all the time how, like, men in general have, and their mental health has been sort of dismissed, but I think black men have a unique challenge when it comes to their mental health. And what I mean is, I think because a black man's value is placed on, like, how well he provides financially, and he has to be strong, and like his athletic ability, and less is focused on his emotional intelligence. So healing is often secondary and non-existent. So that's why it's important.
Absolutely. And yeah, you know, I love that you're doing that, right? I've seen it. And first, because you're like, oh, that's, you know, you're a woman, right? But you're doing it, but it's like you saw a huge need. And I would say, especially, it seems like in these past couple of years, black men are the group that has been most vocal about going to therapy. I mean, people that we know, some of the, you know, most tough guys out there, you know, the strong ones, the athletic guys, and they're like, yeah, you know, had a great therapy session on Facebook, and you're like, I love to see this. You know, you see men like sharing resources on who their therapist is, like all of that, and it's like, thank you. You know what I mean? Like putting it out there and other people see it. You know what I mean? So it puts the bug in their ear that maybe I can go to therapy someday too.
Yeah, we still have a long way to go, I think, with black men. I just think about some of the stories that have been in the media, how we respond to women versus how we respond to men. But overall, I think we're heading in the right direction. And TMH Man Cave, we just want to play our part in helping our communities. That's really what this work is about, for me.
I mean, not to go on a political rant or anything, but we're going to need it, right? As long as black men are considered predators when they're walked down the street, right? I mean, there's people that see a black man and freak out. And as long as their existence still scares police, still people don't have, we're going to need these spaces for them. It's unfair. It's totally unfair.
Yeah, the world, you know, unfortunately, we live in a world where white bodies are viewed as safe, right? And okay, but black bodies are viewed as a threat, right? And not needing to be protected. And so there are things that happen as a result of this thinking. That's really what it boils down to, is how the world sees specifically white people versus black men, because black people in general, but really black men, when you think about all the murders that have taken place in the last 2 years alone. So it's very sad, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Until that changes, we're going to need this.
And we're going to need more men in the space that you're in now, so we can have men. We don't have a year-long wait list to see a black male therapist.
We are doing things. I know, but we're working to change that. Like I said, the TMH Man Cave side, we're working on some programming where we are going to be going into high schools, trying to get high school juniors and seniors to get certified in mental health and get them interested in our field. We haven't started yet, but that's something we've talked about. We're really excited about that opportunity.
And I would definitely, you know, we were talking about it before we jumped in. Like, I did volunteer work with the crisis text line. And that gives you a great training, right? Not just for, like I was saying, I use the training, the active listening, the phrases to use, the phrases to avoid on a day-to-day basis. I would love to see training like that for anyone. You know, everyone should understand how to talk to somebody else that's going through a hard time, and not making it about themselves. So weird.
Well, here's the thing. I tell people, so we always talked about, like, because there's this stigma around what therapy is and what therapy isn't. So I only can speak for myself and my team and the way I've trained folks who come under me. As a psychotherapist, I do not give advice, ever. That's not my role, right? And so I think I talk about these myths around therapy. So, like, when you talk to your friends, it's typically a conversation you guys are going back and forth, right? I share something, which is fine. That's what friends do.
Yep.
But with a mental health professional, it's not. It's about the person, right?
Yep.
It's a dialogue where we're a client led practice. We're healing centered. So it's all about the client and what they want and meeting them where they're at. Also, there's treatment goals and a treatment plan and assessing and just having that space for yourself. Like it should be about you. I know there are clients who are like, well, my last therapist, and that's fine. But like at TMH, we really pride ourselves on making the session and making this experience about the client. We're secondary.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You know, one of the biggest compliments I've gotten from people when they ask, are you crisis counseling me right now? Maybe.
Oh, you're better than me. So my friends will tell you I'm able to turn it off. Like my friends will tell you I do not carry my therapist role when I'm not working. I just can't.
I don't do it that much, but when certain people are like, when you feel like they got, sometimes you got to ask those questions and start to do that. And
kudos to you because like
I'm not doing it as my normal job.
Know.
So I don't need to turn it off.
People expect that from us. I get teased about it. Like, how do you do that? I'm like, my heart and my mind are my most valuable assets. I cannot, one, give them away, and two, wear them out. I manage a team of 15 and we see over 250 people a week through our offices. And I am responsible for all those people and their mental health. So it's important that I take care of myself, right? And make sure that I have the space to be okay.
Mm-hmm. And do you have someone that you go to talk to yourself?
Oh, Jamila Jones. Hey, Jamila.
Jamila Jones.
Jamila Jones is my therapist. I see her bi-weekly.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And even though I can't confirm it, like I strongly encourage everyone on my team to have a therapist. It's strongly encouraged during the interview process.
Yeah. Especially because the work that you do is a mentally, emotionally draining job.
It is.
And it is. And like, what other tools do you keep in your toolbox for your mental health?
Ooh. So I love working out. I'm in the gym 5-6 days a week.
Same, girl.
Like people say that, but like literally for me, like it really helps me because like when you exercise, you release these mood boosting endorphins, right?
Yep.
So for me, it's starting every day with a nice workout, spending time with my friends. I love my friends. Like my village is part of my support. I love going out to eat. I love to eat. Watching sports is my thing. Traveling, like that's how I take care of my mental health. I always set goals for myself. And I'm also realistic about expectations of life for myself and those around me. That's a big thing for me. And also not being so hard on myself. That's key.
Yeah, I feel like one thing, for me is really trying to look, if I don't exercise, if I am that person that will work out on vacation.
Oh my God, me too. Like literally, I'll be like, I'm not working out, and then I look up and I didn't did something for like 30 minutes. I
don't like hit it hard, I know hardcore, but like I was just in Hawaii and I went on a few runs, you know what I mean? Especially running in new places. Like I love to just see something different, but like I'll hit the damn weight room in the gym in Vegas and I'm like, what is wrong with me? But like, if I don't work out, if I'm not active, I feel so, for one day is fine. After like 2 or 3 days, I'm so antsy. I like can't even I can't sit still. I can't relax. My mother would probably confirm because I was a kid that was climbing blinds. You know what I mean? I was just all over the place. So yeah, that is like, but I think another thing too for me is really like, okay, so there's this, maybe you know this phrase. I remember reading it years ago in an article. It was saying, so I was diagnosed with PTSD. I was
going to ask you, did you mind sharing your diagnosis?
No, I have a generalized anxiety disorder.
I assumed that when you were talking. I was like, oh, she must have GAD.
Sure do. Yeah, and so I used to have a nice little cocktail of drugs. Now I'm just on one. I tried to go off it once and I didn't like it. And my psychiatrist, like, that's just your baseline. I'm like, my baseline is terrible. I don't know how I lived like this for 21 years.
Wow. Can I just say real quick, I love your transparency and just willingness to be open and talk about that. Like I do. I just want to acknowledge that because that's not easy. It sounds like you're very comfortable with your journey and where you've been. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you. It is just a big part of who I am, right? And it's, I joke with my college teammates all the time of like, well, you knew me before I was medicated, so apologize for some of that behavior. But I am a generalized anxiety disorder. I am not obsessive compulsive. They looked into, I have like the compulsive thoughts, but I don't have the obsessive actions to go with it. But they were looking at that one a few times. They're like, it's just, but I sometimes have those thoughts, and you're and I still get a little bit of like, did I lock my door? Did I do this? Do I this? I can't run an autopilot, because if I run an autopilot, I obsess if I miss something. And also post-traumatic stress. So that really a bad case of that one. So that was my diagnoses.
Okay.
And then what was I gonna say? Okay, yeah. So but I was reading about. I was like, where was I going?
You were reading something.
Yes, because one of the things that, like, okay, post-traumatic stress, it's a monster of a thing. It is, I have a book on it. I would say the best way that I can describe it to somebody is if you tell someone, all right, think about your prom in high school, right? You're like, oh, you think about it, and you would put it back in your little mental folder for prom, and you close that file cabinet, and it would live appropriately in your memories of your prom. When you have PTSD, your file cabinets are not filing correctly. And so memories will start popping up everywhere, and you cannot stop it. And that analogy really worked well for me to try to explain to people how that comes up, right? Of just anything might trigger it, and then you get anxious because you're not sure what your triggers are, right? It's a vicious cycle.
It is, and I like that analogy, right? The files just pop up, right? But I'm going to take it a step further and say, like, for Black people, in my professional opinion, I struggle with the PTSD diagnosis when I'm working with my people, only because there's nothing post about our experience, right? It's prevalent, right? To be Black in America. So I always say, like, this present traumatic stress disorder, like the files are always open for us.
And that is like having your triggers never ending, right? Because for me, it was, and I've talked about this on the show I did with Shay. I was kidnapped. I was raped. Like, I had this whole thing. I had one definitive moment, right? All these are my things. So it is a very cut and dry PTSD. But when you have the trauma of a childhood, the trauma of this, the anxious of knowing if the police are going to, it doesn't necessarily fit that diagnosis, right? Because it is
the microaggressions at work where you're struggling to conform, right?
Right, because you're trying to process what happened when you were younger, freaking out that it might happen tomorrow or today. And
the microaggressions.
Where I was going with this all, though, let me circle back, though, because I would say for myself is I was reading this article about, so there's something about that post-traumatic stress, right? You're this, I was not in a good place. I actually didn't think that I was going to live past like 30 years old. I always thought I was going to die young, right?
Aren't you like 30 now? You're so young.
I'm about to be 38. But like, when you go through something so traumatic, you're like, well, it's going to happen again. I won't live long. This is just, but there's something, it's like, I was reading about this woman. She had it was like kind of like a post-traumatic, like almost bliss. It's like you kind of start to see the light, and all of a sudden it turned me into so much more grateful for the present of where I'm living now. It's like I went through all of that, and I kind of like emerged from the storm. And so like I don't necessarily focus too much on like, I mean, I have goals, but it's like, I'm on my own journey. I'll get there when I get there. Isn't today a great fucking day? And that is kind of how I live my life. And it's not fake in the sense of like, I went through fucking hell. And so I do feel like I am grateful, for today.
Yeah. One of my things is like, I like to stay in the moment. I'm with you. So because of my own challenges and just the way I grew up, I'm just thankful for the day, and I kind of just stay in the moment when life happens. But if when life happens and I'm having a hard time, I do give myself that space, and I encourage everybody else too, to give yourself that time to kind of feel what you feel and seek out the help if needed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so my other question too, Rick, I asked you about your toolbox, do you have certain triggers for yourself when you realize that you need to go into your toolbox?
Yes. So I would say a lot of my triggers come from being a business owner. So, especially as a Black woman in the city of Chicago. And so my triggers, they vary, right? So it can be something as not simple, but like if my billing is not what it needs to be for my company, right? And when I talk about billing, I mean like claims that we submit to be reimbursed. As you all know, we are a state Medicaid provider, right? So we take commercial insurance too. We have a large Medicaid population. So when claims aren't paid, it's like frustrating. And I'm like, okay, yep. I can feel my blood pressure rising. I can feel, and I have to literally take a moment to myself and say, okay, what's happening? Let's think about this. And sometimes I'm able to just hop on my bike and just kind of take a ride, and it helps calm me down. So yeah, I would say I'm more triggered, as a business owner than anything, sometimes because of the challenges of running several businesses, to be honest.
Yeah, let's be real. That is a ton of work.
It is. It is. But I enjoy it. I really, my vice president always says like, hey, you need to kind of cut down your caseload. I love being a psychotherapist. I do. I love helping people psychologically, socially, and emotionally. And I also love, as a business owner, providing opportunities for others. I often tease the therapists on my team who are fresh out of school, like, I would have never had a job at a private practice right out of grad school. Like I was working at some nonprofit making like $14 an hour.
Man, right. The stereotype of we think of what a social worker is, but we do need people in those spaces too.
Oh, definitely. We need, listen, I've worked in those spaces for years. I've worked with the HIV and AIDS population, the homeless population, child welfare. I've worked with a lot of different people. DV, I'm a certified domestic violence counselor. So like, I have an array of experience, which I think has helped me sort of be able to manage my team, but also navigate this space and help others.
What would you say are the hardest types of cases to deal with? You just named two of probably the big: child abuse, domestic violence. What are the ones that kind of get to, you know what I mean? Because you're doing your job, but you're still human.
Yeah. So a full transparency, I no longer practice as a certified domestic violence counselor. We do provide some of those services. I have someone on my team because I am an overcomer of DV. And so I don't even, I'm an overcomer of DV. I don't say survive because I did more than survived. I overcame it.
Oh, I love it. And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I am an overcomer of DV. I've shared a lot on this show. But no, and that's just me being more comfortable. But no, I am an overcomer of DV. So I don't necessarily do that work anymore just because it could be a trigger for me. And I recognize that. And that's one of the things about and being in this space is that I talk to my team about, listen, we don't have to see everyone who calls our office, right? We can refer out. And as a therapist, it's okay to say, you know what, I don't feel comfortable serving that population. As a practice, we don't do what's called forensic mental health. So we don't provide, like, we don't work with folks who have court cases or like DCFS involvement. Right now, we don't do that work. We refer out just because we don't, it's just not our specialties. So it's okay to kind of be like, we don't provide those services.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, just thinking of the cycle of domestic violence, all like, from the outside looking in, I feel like that's got to, I can't even imagine being a survivor or overcomer of it myself and trying to guide someone through it without getting emotionally invested in it.
I literally, I'll share this. So like, as a therapist, we don't share with clients, right? We share when we think it's appropriate. I can count on one hand how many times I've shared anything personal about myself with a client. But I remember early on in my work in private practice, I was working with someone who had an extensive history of DV. And I was probably her 5th DV counselor. She had it was extensive. And I was working with her for 3 or 4 years and she just could not get past it. And literally one day in session, I said, what if I told you I was an overcomer of DV? And it literally shifted our work. It literally shifted because she saw like, wow, if I can overcome it, she could.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is. Woo, yeah.
No, it's deep. It's heavy, and that's why this is why I always say like this profession, like, and I have to go on my soapbox. Like the one thing I don't like about mental health being at the forefront is all the so-called experts and the Facebook therapists, and it's like this work is not just talking, right? It's we carry so much. Like shout out to all the healers because we carry a lot for our clients. For the people, the people that we serve. And so like you can't, it's a lot, but I enjoy this. This is why I make sure I take care of myself because I want to do this. I love this work.
Absolutely. And it's on the social work front too. Child abuse is got to be one of the hardest ones to.
During COVID, the numbers went up. What we don't talk about, what we haven't talked about, what hasn't been in the media, not just the child abuse numbers that went up in the DV numbers, right? Because think about it, kids no longer in school, right? Like they weren't with their friends, but
men
also
lost jobs.
Men lost, exactly. I think about the children who lost parents during COVID. We don't talk about that.
No, we don't.
We
have a lot of kids are orphaned with it.
About 25,000 across the U.S. Yep.
I'm sorry, what?
About 25,000 kids across the U.S. Yeah.
Orphans because of COVID.
Yep.
Oh my God.
And we don't talk enough about that.
No, right? We don't.
Like those kids. We have a few clients who in our practice who have experienced that, unfortunately.
Oh, that is yeeks. On a personal level, one thing. Get a little personal, right? As a woman starting to approach 40, I personally don't want to have any children of my own. However, I have always thought about like adopting kids in the foster system, but I want older kids, right? I don't want the shiny infant, the babe. However, let's talk though about the good, the bad, the ugly, about something of adopting a kid out of the foster system. What do you know about that? It's my own personal knowledge, but also other people, because people talk about it, like I think, and one of the things that through one of the organizations I volunteer with, we were looking and I saw the number of children in Illinois that are in the foster system whose parents don't have any parental rights. And I think that number kind of flipped something in my head of like, there are thousands of kids just in Illinois that are going to age out of the foster system. And that's it.
Like myself, I aged out.
I was just about to ask you on that one. So, God. So, I mean, it's got to be something near and dear to your heart too. Like, how do you, how do you, okay. So many questions. I know. I'm like, okay. So
we got like 7 minutes.
No, I know we have 7 minutes, and this is like the massive important topic because again, when you said you were a foster kid, I was like, oh man.
So I want to be clear. So I want to be clear. So I don't use the term I was a foster care kid because no one fostered me. So I just want to make it's different. So I never lived in a foster home. I lived in group homes and transitional living homes, and shelters. So I never lived in a foster home. But
so you said you were a
DCFS ward.
DCFF ward. Okay. Thank you.
DCFS ward.
DCFS ward. Thank you for correcting me.
No problem.
I need to get the terminology right.
No, it's fine, but it's a personal choice.
No,
it's because of the context that comes.
Yep, because you're right. Because when I say foster home, it's making you think that you were in a home, but you were actually. Yep.
Yeah, and lots 100%. Of kids aren't in foster care homes. I'm on the board of directors. I'm on the board of directors at UCAN, and so we have a residential facility, and this is where these kids live. It's not a foster home. So I think people automatically assume that when we say foster care, that these kids, a lot of kids are in homes, right, where they're not with their biological parents. But the truth of the matter is, it's a lot of youth in care. It's a more appropriate term outside of the foster care home.
Yeah. So for you, growing up through that way, aging out. God, what was that like?
Very challenging.
How do you, I mean, you
we
went
need to know
to
another show for that, but
I know, I mean, you went to junior college, you played basketball, you found your way.
I did.
How did you create your family? You know,
My
how do
friends
you,
are my family.
there it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My friends are my family. You know, I have been very blessed. It's almost like I tell Tracy this all the time. It's almost like God said, what you didn't have in family, I'm going to make sure you feel that with your friends. My friends are my village. I absolutely love them. There's a special young lady in my life. You might hear me refer to her on Facebook as Mama Sister.
Yeah, I think I remember.
So,
yeah, this is yeah.
So her name is Tina. So when I was 15, was I 16? That was 15 years old. I lived in a transitional living home.
Mm-hmm.
This is a place where I had like roommates, and Tina was our, what you would call our RA.
Mm-hmm.
And we were super, super close, like too close, so close that her boss used to be like, Tina, you're too close to Tanny. You know, you guys can't be there close. There are other girls in the home. And when I met her, she literally like took me under her wing, even though I had some pushback with that. And she quit just so we can have a better relationship.
Oh, wow.
And so she's been in my life ever since. She's like my guardian angel. She really is, her along with my grandmother. And so like that relationship was so important. So I would encourage you like to keep volunteering in terms of like you wanting to, you know, be around foster care kids. But yeah, it was very challenging for me, but God is good. I'm extremely blessed. I have had a blessed life. Despite my challenges, I always say I'm just an overcomer, and I'm just who I needed. That's it. I'm the sister I needed, the friend I needed, the mother I needed, the auntie I needed, like the friend I needed. And I'm just blessed, and my village is everything for me.
We'll have to talk more offline about for me. Yeah, it's like
I know people are like, what? Because I don't really talk about it.
Yeah,
but I'm becoming more comfortable in sharing.
And I love that, and I appreciate that, because that's one of those things where, you know, it's kind of a conceptual thing for me, right? Because I see it as an idea. You know, I hear of the numbers of the children. You know, sometimes you see news articles, but most of these kids are faceless, right? And so I'm like, you know, maybe like in my 40s, maybe that's
I would definitely encourage
children to, you know, take on in. And I don't want babies. I don't want little kids. I want like a middle school or a high school, or because parenting doesn't stop at 18, right?
It doesn't. It does not. And so like I think what you're saying is so powerful. The fact that you want an older child, because they're the least likely adopted.
They are.
Everybody wants a baby. I've always said once I have, even though Tracy's probably laughing because I've been raising kids my whole life. So she's probably like, you don't need no more kids. But after I want to have my own, but I also want to adopt. I want to give someone what I didn't have, you know?
Yeah. It's something about, there's so many of these children in the world that could use a family. Like, why not get one of those, right?
Right. And family is not always blood.
It sure ain't, girl. It sure ain't. I don't know. It's
she
literally just said that out loud.
I know she did. Yeah, it's like literally, like if I counted like my village in terms of family, it would be nobody in my village has the same blood that runs through their veins as me. But the loyalty, the support, the love, it's like that's what keeps me going. I am so loved, and I am so grateful that God has blessed amazing people around me. Like I have some of the best people. I brag about my friends. I have an amazing friend group. Amazing.
Well, what did I say when I was introducing you? You were so nice. You just, you know, the aura that you gave off.
Oh, thank you.
Just the very first moment I met you was like inviting, and that, you know, so it was just that, and that's why you have a great circle, because you give off that energy, and you're attracting to like flies to a light. Is that what you know? Everyone's coming to you. You're that light. We're all going to you, and that's why everyone is coming to you. You know,
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
because it hasn't always been that way. It hasn't. Therapy has helped.
I can see that.
Therapy has helped. And honestly, I didn't even, you know, I'll be honest, I didn't even start therapy till about 3 or 4 years ago.
Really? So you were just helping other people and not helping yourself? You know, you're supposed to put your own oxygen mask on before you put it on someone else?
I could never commit. But then I realized, I said, you know what? You are a great therapist. But think about how much better you would be if you worked on your own healing. And so I made that commitment, and it's been probably one of the best decisions I made.
Absolutely. Yeah. Changed my life. Absolutely. So we're wrapping up in our final time, because again, you need to go say bye to someone before they go off to Africa, right?
Tina, my Tina.
Yeah, she's going on a little vacay, so we have to go say bye to her first. But closing thoughts for you. I'll guide you first. Where are you going professionally? What is next on the horizon for you professionally?
A lot. So, my main focus is growing TMH Man Cave and our visibility so that we can get funding. But I'm also looking to do things more on the macro level. At the state level, and being in some of the rooms that make key decisions about the mental health needs of Black people, especially in the city of Chicago. So looking to do that, doing more speaking engagements, working on a book.
You're a phenomenal speaker. You're a phenomenal speaker. And I would read your book.
Thank you so much. I'm my real estate investment company, still working on that. Yeah. And I also have a online practice, TMH Wellness Redefined, where we only see women and teens. And so I have two therapists, one in Atlanta and one in Indiana, because we're licensed in those states. So we provide services virtually for women and teens. So growing that practice, that's at the top of my list.
Absolutely. And then what is on the horizon for you personally?
Why did I know that question was you know what? That's a great question. And I'm just taking it one day at a time.
Yeah.
I'm honestly taking life one day at a time. This past year was very challenging for us all, but like for me personally, I lost my grandmother in 2020 right before COVID.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Very, very close.
Yeah.
As you all know, Tracy went through some challenges with COVID. We almost lost her. And so that shifted things for me. And I'm just taking it one day at a time. That's it. And just trying to figure this thing out called life and just enjoy every single moment the best way I can. Keep traveling, exercising, and trying to enjoy this summer, right?
Yes, summertime shy. We live through the winter. We live through the winter for this time of year. So final parting words of advice for the world on mental health.
Well, I don't give advice, but
words of wisdom. Words of wisdom.
So I always end things and say, mental illness is not a personal failure. Not taking care of your mental health is.
Ooh. Drops mic at the stage left.
That's my favorite thing to say.
That is the most amazing thing I literally have ever heard.
That's my saying. My friends know it. That's my thing. I like at the end of the day, it's not a personal failure, but not taking care of your mental health is.
It is. Yep. It's not a failure that my brain is wired a little differently.
That's right.
But if I kept living in that world of denial, that would be the issue.
And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on.
And this was great. Yeah, this was fun. Anytime I can share the work that my team and I are doing and just spread the message about how important taking care of your mental health is, I'm all
I'll be having you back on here. Don't worry about that. And I really will be hitting you up because, like I said, the children out there, again, I'm not trying to adopt one tomorrow, right? But
there's some ins and outs you should understand, and I'll be more than happy.
And I would love to learn more about it as something that, for me personally, and then just kind of learning, thanks, Frank, about some of the ways that I can help those children now, because it's, look, Sherry ain't having no babies herself, but apparently Sherry loves the kids. I have a soft spot, for children, and especially it breaks my heart thinking of how I had a family, how this, and to think that there are children out there that don't have it, and I want that for all of them. I'm gonna cry. And it's just like
it's a big taking on.
It is, and it it's really is something that is important to me. And thank you, babe. And I would love to not just for myself, but I want more people to think about too, of how we can do more for our children of our community, right?
Because volunteer, be a mentor. I want to say, for some folks, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just want to stress, like, for everybody, it's not about adopting or fostering. Become a mentor. right?
Absolutely.
Connect with organizations who work with youth.
Yeah,
that's important. Those relationships go a long, long way.
Yeah, I'd posted on Facebook 2 weeks ago. I volunteer a couple places, but one of them being Lakeview Pantry. And
I saw that.
When the little girl hugged me, I think my whole world like just exploded. Like I was like, oh, I'm going to take this child now. Thank you. But I was just like, oh, my world. Like, of course, I will give you all the food. Take all the food, honey. Take all of it. Take all of it. Eat for days. Eat for years. You deserve all of this. And that's why I do what I do. I also volunteer for Cards for Kids. People make handmade greeting cards. We ship around the world.
I love it.
Hospitals, group homes. But again, it's just really, it is something that I just want the children to have what I had. And like you said, you want to be what was needed. So I want people like us to come together and make the world a better place.
Let's do it. Feel free to reach out to me anytime you have my contact information. We should definitely talk, because I can definitely share like personal opinion, professionally, the ins and outs of the foster care system and like some of the challenges that I've seen. We work with a lot of kids who are adopted in our practice, and like I do some work with a lot of people around that. So reach out to me.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure. Thank you. You too.
All right.
Bye. What an amazing episode. I almost cried, guys. Man, I didn't think that would get me, but it does. So glad to have her on, you guys. I've talked so much about mental health. Sports, obviously, right? That's my thing. That's what I do. But mental health is a huge part of me. It's a huge part of my journey, and it really should be a huge part of all of our journeys, right? Just so important. And it's wonderful to learn. And that's the thing too. Like, I interview people. Sometimes it's new people. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, sometimes I talk to people that I've known for years and just learn stuff about them. And it really brings me joy, learning about people. And now I'm all like, oh, I have to find another organization to volunteer with, because I don't already volunteer with a couple of them. But so that is my show tonight. A special shout out to everyone that was watching, all of my people in the mental health world. Oh my God, the therapists, the counselors, the social workers, the teachers, bless all your hearts. You guys should be paid way more. The work you guys do is beyond important. When people say, like, oh, Sherry, I live in Chicago, all the gang, all the violence. How do you make the world better? Social workers in schools, more access to resources, all these things. This is the community. This is what we need. And so people like Tytannie is what we need in Chicago, and it's going to make all of our world better. So I'm on my little soapbox. I don't even have my outro ready. But on that note,
this has been a Chicago Clubhouse Network production.
Bye. Have a good one.